Hi, this is Jesse Liberty for Telerik. Today we're going to continue our exploration of the RAD docking control. RAD docking is part of the Telerik RAD controls for Silverlight and WPF control suite for .NET and XAML development. Today we're particularly going to take a look at saving the layout of your RAD dock control to an XML file in isolated storage and then loading back from that layout. To get started, let's create a new project. We'll call it raddocking.saveload, accept it as a Silverlight 5 application, and as we have previously, include a reference for docking, which will include the dependent references. We're going to get started by dropping in a large dockable control layout that will give us a good deal to work with in our application. You can see that this consists of multiple parts. We have a panel group that will be on the left, a panel group that will be on the right, and a panel group that will be on top. The panel group that's on the right actually has built into it a tree view control. Let's look at this whole thing when it's running. You can see there are 4 panes in the group on the left, 2 panes on the bottom, and on the right is that tree view control inside a pane as well. You can imagine that we might very well want to save this layout. To do that, let's return to the XAML and come down to the first pane in our collection. Within that pane, we're going to find a property of RAD docking called serialization tag, and we will assign a unique serialization tag to that first pane. We'll then scroll down to the next pane and do the same thing. Add Telerik RAD docking serialization tag and give it a unique name, in this case document pane. We're going to do the same thing for all of the panes so that when we are done, every pane has an individual serialization tag that is unique. Let's save that and go over to the code behind file, where we will add a private method, save layout. Examining this method, we see that we're using isolated storage and that what we're doing is calling the save layout method on the RAD docking control, passing in the isolated storage stream, and then retrieving XML as a string. Let's come back to the XAML. We need a way to set the save going. Normally we would do that when we're leaving the page or tombstoning the page, etc. What we'll do is we'll add 2 rows to our grid, place our entire structure into grid row 1, thereby reserving grid row 0, whose height is automatic, which means it will size to the size of the control we put there, and the control we're going to put there is a button marked save, and we'll add a click event handler for the button. Let's save that and go to the code behind, and in our click event handler for the button, we will call the private member method save layout. So the button will simulate whatever conditions we would normally save the layout. Let's build that and run that, and you can see we're ready to save the layout. Let's put a breakpoint where we're getting the XML. Return and click save, and you can see the XML is currently null, but as we step over the next line where we read to the end and fill the XML, we can now see the XML. Let's click on the visualizer and take the XML visualizer, and you can see that our layout has been transformed into an XML file which captures the layout, and this is going to be stored in isolated storage. Of course, storing doesn't do us much good unless we have a way to load the layout back. Here's a private member method load layout that once again goes to isolated storage, reads the file we just created when we saved the layout, and loads that back, replacing whatever was in the layout before. Let's go to the XAML where we have one button, and we'll put in a stack panel with an orientation of horizontal, and that will allow us to have two buttons in the first row. Let's move our button up into the stack panel, and then we can add a second button that will simulate arriving on the page or whatever other conditions are going to cause a reload of the saved layout. And we'll give that an event handler as well. You can now save this and go back to the code behind file, and in the event handler for load click we will call the load layout method, and so we will then be loading the layout that was saved. Let's run this. The first thing we're going to do is save the current layout. We can then begin to move things around, play with undocking and with opening up controls and moving panes to new positions and redocking. Now we have a very different layout, but when we click load, it instantly restores the layout to the saved layout. I hope you've seen how easy it is to save layouts and restore them using the rad dockable control. For Telerik, this is Jesse Liberty. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to speak with you again very soon